Alrighty, welcome to another book club. This is for chapter 2.13, Health, Sleep, and Unlimited Energy, Cornerstones of an Optimal Life. Getting into all the reasons why sleep is important. So who would like to kick us off with some takeaways from this chapter?
This is where the awkward silence starts. Sorry.
I see. I was trying to break the awkward silence. I was like, I could just get it going. But this one had me rethinking everything for myself in the morning, because specifically alarm clocks, pushing snooze, and how that's a habit of disease. And I have kind of conditioned myself to set my alarm clock way earlier so that I will still get up earlier and do things that I've set out to do. And I thought, oh, that was such a great idea. Like, I'll set my alarm for 5, but I might not get up until 5:45. And then I'll get up before everybody else. I'll read, I'll do my journaling, I'll pray, I'll do the things and start my day off great. But I always feel like groggy, and it takes me a while to like wake up well and to have that energy. And so this got me rethinking all of that on just like, one, maybe not setting an alarm at all and allowing myself just to wake up naturally, but really kind of doing that reverse engineering and making sure I'm getting enough sleep and going to bed on time so that I will just wake up around that 5:45, 6 a.m. time that I want to. So I thought this was so interesting, because now I'm like thinking about getting one of those dawn simulator clocks instead.
Just bought one yesterday, Ashley. Like literally.
I literally just put it in my cart this morning on Amazon.
I'm going to try it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys let us know, because I want to get one that's good. So thank you for being the guinea pig.
Yes.
Is it like a salt lamp, or is it like
the ones I saw, they all look like this big like circle.
They all look kind of the same.
It emulates the sunshine, so you're like waking up to sunshine. So it does look like a cute little sun. It's like just a little round thing.
Yeah, it's like $40. Not bad.
Which I feel like could be super helpful during these winter months when it's darker longer in the morning, because I find that once we move our clocks forward and it gets brighter earlier, I would wake up more naturally at an earlier time because the sun was up when I started thinking about that. But now it's like I might need help with that in those winter months, because the sun's not up here until like 7 a.m. So I want to be up earlier than that.
No doubt. I thought the on page 399, the different sleep stages was interesting. I know it kind of brings it up later in the chapter, but I didn't know there was 4 stages. And why we sleep, and probably why it was easier to sleep 10,000 years ago. And how television, computers, and technology and progress ruined everything. That was on page 400.
All the blue light things.
Yeah. And these different things that we could take the TV into our room now, right? Like in 2 feet from our face, or it's true. It's true. Totally screwed it up for us.
Or work schedules.
And work schedules, yeah. Richard and I had a great conversation about how, it's not just the 8-hour shift, it's the swing shift, it's the night shift, and adapting that to, families and stuff like that. It's not easy. In fact, a lot of folks on this program have crazy schedules, and it works for them. The program works for them because you can do it whenever, but it's tough. I didn't realize how important sleep was in conjunction with everything. I just wish I could read faster, get to these chapters faster.
For those of you that have like TV in your rooms, does it make you think twice about having it in your rooms? I'm curious.
Never have, never will have.
It makes me think twice about it. I do have one in there. We rarely use it, but it really got me thinking about even keeping my cell phone in my room. because I think that's where I typically go to, is like laying there and scrolling and getting distracted with it, or even just trying to unwind that way. But I've found that it does the opposite effect. And I use my phone for my alarm clock usually. So just rethinking that device and having it maybe charged in my kitchen or something, or in my office instead.
That's what I usually do.
HARP is a
I
better
stop
way.
charging my phone in my room. So when it's time for bed, I plug it in, and I bought myself an alarm clock on Amazon, and it's made a huge difference. And when it creeps back in, because it does sometimes, that's when my sleep starts getting crappy again.
Interesting.
No, Dr. A says in there, and I read this last night, so it's very fresh in my brain. We need to train our brains to only associate the bed with two things: sleep and lovemaking. That cracked me up that he said those are the only two things. Just so we can stay focused.
You had told me
that-
you were going to go there. I would have had Marvin Gaye keyed up.
Oh, boy.
Well, we were already on like the purpose of, good sleep.
Yeah.
One of the
Truth be
things-
told, if he would dig into sexual health, this program would just take things to a whole new level.
Well, I don't know that Dr. D, I haven't finished the book, but I don't know that he takes it there. I don't know.
He doesn't, but
I know.
maybe
Okay.
that's third
Feedback.
edition.
Maybe that's a third. Maybe that's another book club. Maybe that's
And
It'll be like a separate thing for
right.
those that
Andrew's
wanna know more
squirming. He's
about
like,
that.
well, that's all for today's podcast.
That's the advanced edition of yeah.
There's something that spoke to me about kiddos that I want to get back away from the conversation that we're having now. So there's actually a bit in here that I thought was really interesting in regards to kiddos, and only because we actually had a teacher approach us and question if Savannah had ADHD in like grade school. But there's a part in here that he says that when there's sleep deprivation or sleep issues, that it could it says what we can say is the scientists have observed over longer periods of time that a chronic lack of sleep can attribute to this list. So leads to weight gain, adversely impacts learning and memory, compromises our immune system, elevates your blood pressure, increases inflammation, shorten lifespan. But this one is what hit me, and it creates symptoms of ADHD. And Savannah's had it was brought to our attention later in her life, but I asked her last night, I was like, when do you remember having those actual sleep? Like when was it hard for you to sleep? Because we have her on melatonin and stuff like that to help her, because she just can't stop, and go to sleep. And she's like, as far as I can remember. But the thing that we never knew that, we never knew she would sit in her bedroom for hours after bedtime and just look around because she cannot go to sleep. And so it made me think of, okay, well, there was this teacher that asked us if Savannah had ADHD, and it could very well have been because she was not getting enough rest, and so that just kind of was a major eye opener, like, holy crap.
Yeah, I actually looked up the source. I went and I was doing some extra research because this was a fascinating chapter to me. And I always like to dig in. And I found a lot of places where Dr. A found his sources just accidentally. I should have just looked for his sources in the back of the book. But yeah, there's a whole thing on lack of sleep and ADHD. And yeah, I was like, where's the part where it says it creates symptoms? I found it. I found the part. But yeah, I mean, I would have never look for something like that. Not that I know of any instances in our own family, but had we, again, it's like you just don't know what you don't know. It's good to have that information in your head for the future if anything happens like that.
Another one right at the same top. This is on page 401, by the way, but there's another one that says the level of depression in those that have sleep issues is 5 times greater than those that that are healthy sleepers. So, I mean, there's all kinds of just things that I think we don't realize that impacts us on so many different levels because we're not sleeping.
it's like
I feel this one to my
overeating.
core. Like everything is worse in my life when I don't sleep well.
Yes. Yes.
Like everything.
No, my daughter used to have migraine headaches, and if she didn't get enough sleep, migraines really were impacted.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that one big time. Big time.
Cindy, your post about taking a nap really inspired me. I want to integrate a siesta into my day.
I think
Oh
it's
man,
feel like
I was exhausted yesterday, you guys. Like it's not normal. Like Andrew and I drove to the vet, drove to the house and drove home. Like I was falling asleep in the car. Like I was that tired.
I was tired too. We were both tired. I didn't take the nap, but it was really weird yesterday.
But that like refreshing, just like shut down the brain for an hour and a half. Like it's incredible what a difference it made. And I was worried because I'm like, oh gosh, when I take naps, I can't fall asleep at night. But I fell asleep just fine last night. So it's just a reminder, like sometimes, and we have been staying up late, and I think that has something to do with it. I don't function well without sleep. And I think even Dr. A says in the book, like it's a form of
Torture.
what's like torture. Yeah, it's a form of torture. And I believe it because you just can't function the same without sleep.
totally. I know I've been thinking, because the kids are still home with me. I'm like, man, what if we could just integrate like a 20-minute break every day? I don't have to fall asleep. But if everything stopped and we put everything down and we just lay down and closed our eyes for 20 minutes, what a different afternoon I think we might have.
Well, he talks
You
about that
inspired
in
me.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
I
read
and
all about. That's what got me thinking about it.
yeah.
Because that's not like I watch our day kind of fizzle, right? And none of my kids take naps anymore. But that means I don't get any breaks. You know what I'm saying? And so then like things escalate. I start getting tired.
I don't know. Do they do nap time for kids in preschool anymore? That kind of
Nope.
stuff?
It's gone. At least at ours. Preschool, no nap. Kindergarten, no nap. It's
My
so,
son, he took naps. So that, this is 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
yeah. Naps are so 9 years ago.
Give him your chocolate milk and sit down and take a nap.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Or
And
fake
it's
it.
like, it's not a matter of actually falling asleep. You know what I mean? Like, yes, that's helpful, but I think just that
even just getting
concept
that
of
active rest,
Yeah,
like it doesn't have to be, it doesn't even have to necessarily be like a power nap. Like I'm an advocate for them. I love them. I do them sometimes because I know I can feel it and I just need it, like Cindy was talking about. But I love how they talked about passive versus active rest, and even just taking that intentional moment to like breathe, pray, meditate, like just really quiet yourself and have an active rest like that. I think if we even, like you said, Anna, like schedule that into like our day around noon, like they were talking about how, that's just what people did so many years ago, was around the 6th hour of the day, they rested.
I think what's sad about that actually is like society today, their idea of rest is being on their phone or watching TV.
Yes. Yes.
Which is so,
and it has like the adverse effect, right? Because I've done it and it does not help.
I know. I'm going to try that this week, I think.
I woke up this morning finishing a little bit of this chapter. And then when Landon woke up, my son, I sat him down and I was like, guess what we're going to start doing tonight? And I just like started telling him, because I had been writing like my charts in my life book this morning of like what my like bedtime routine, morning routine was going to kind of look like. And I was just telling him, I was like, this is the time that we're going to shut off all the devices. We're going to start having like twilight time. We're going to read books. We'll play a game. We'll do the things, but there'll be 0 devices, because I am so guilty of letting him like lay there and like watch one last like YouTube video while we snuggle and kind of quiet down for the evening. But he's so restless. He doesn't like fall asleep right away. And then I'm not falling asleep right away. I'm like, ooh, we need to button this up. So I'm going to start incorporating different routines for us.
It's made a huge difference at our house. I can't wait to hear how it works at yours, Ash.
Yeah.
Ashley, what element is that? I know Dr. A talks about it, like right at the end of the book. What element is that?
19.
All right. Well, 19 for all of you. Skip ahead.
Yeah. 19 is awesome. I mean, it reiterates a lot of what you just read, but it specifically gets you like writing down your own ritual. And so he breaks it down in those columns that he explains in this chapter about like what you're going to do an hour before bed, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, once you're in bed, and then like head on the pillow. And like you kind of are writing down each of those like macro habits almost of like, what is that going to look like for me specifically?
Don't you think you have to customize those for everybody has to do their own ritual though?
Exactly. That's why they're blank in the element section. When you go to your life book for element 19, he keeps them blank. He gives you an example and then he gives you a blank one for you to write in your own customized plan.
I've got a ritual that I followed for years, and I'm one of those lucky individuals. I have no problem going to sleep or staying asleep. I'm asleep within about 5 minutes after I turn the light out. So.
Nice. Well, we all kind of, we have rituals already, but just like we were talking about last week, I mean, this is the stuff that I rebel against. I'm like, no, I can't have a ritual. But then when I look at it, it's like, you have a ritual. It's just not a healthy one.
Right.
I'll have my phone in the bed, and I mean, almost every night, Stacy falls asleep first, and then I'll be on my stomach, literally watching something or reading something, and then I fall asleep and my phone falls on the ground, and it wakes me up.
We had this pastor a lot of times he would mention by design or default, and I often think of that every time I go through something new in our book. Is like, I do have a ritual like that, but it was totally by default. It's not by design. So now I want to design it.
Well, I look forward to that chapter you're talking about, because I think that's the problem is I think about it and I know, but I don't actually set it. I mean, we've been talking about getting the phones out of the room. I don't have a TV, but the phone's there. And then even the stuff we see about blue light, I mean, it's like every light in this room, we've got a computer in the room, and we have to, because it's where Stacy's home office is, but it's like we can tape over these lights that are blinking or shut this thing down all the way at night, so we're not having the whirring and stuff. My daughter, I'm actually jealous of her nighttime routine. Like she's the second one to go to bed, so she goes in, starts reading. She's got these little LEDs on the ceiling. She turns on like a nice little blue light or a red light, and she'll have her Alexa playing literally like Zen spa music. And and our bed's made, and like this, and when I go in there, I'm just like, I'm sleeping in here tonight. Like
the vibe is on point.
Yeah, but then I go to my room and I'm like, oh, let me look at my phone, and it's like you just were in there experiencing what that's like to like calm down, but I haven't built a habit.
You go shopping for yourself and go emulate, get exactly what she has, put it in your room, squared away.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to be getting some new glasses here pretty soon. I'm seriously considering about getting the blue block glass.
Yep, I have them on mine. There's, matter of fact, I don't think we buy glasses anymore without having them on there. But Richard, it's so nice just to have your eyes feel calm, and you notice it right away. I mean, there's not a strain. It just, you get this calmness from it. I totally advocate for the blue light block.
I have it on mine as well, and I do like it too.
I think Anna and Marisa bought they're not even prescription. They're just glasses that are blue light glasses. And they said it's made a huge difference too.
Mm-hmm. I got them for my kids too. They don't keep them on very often, but I wish they would.
Dylan calls them his gamer god glasses. He wears them.
There you go.
I get less headaches too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the prescription ones, but when I wear my contacts, I have the non-prescriptions. They really do make a difference, especially when you're on the computer all day.
Yeah.
Yep, for real.
I guess I got to get some of those. Stacy has some, but I have a new look with some glasses.
It's awesome. Like when you're having a long day with lots of like meetings and, you know, things that are on the screen, or you're just doing a lot of work, it makes me feel less exhausted. I noticed at the end of it, like just it changed a lot. It's hard to put your finger on, but you do notice the difference.
There's a little sidebar thing, and it's way back at the very, very beginning that it's on 399 that talks about sleep apnea. And so the reason why I bring this up is because my husband, I'm not kidding you, I've had so many, he makes the ungodliest sounds when he's sleeping. And I'm not kidding. I mean, it's like, this is going to make you laugh, but I had a dream that there was a llama yelling at me, and it was my husband's sleeping sounds when I finally woke up.
He was the llama sound.
I love that you went straight for the llama. Like, you know, it was an alpaca tracking me in the night, not a sheep.
It was the weirdest thing. But I woke up and I realized that it was him doing it. And I started cracking up laughing and woke him up to get him to move so that he wasn't making the sound. So, but let me tell you, since he's been on program and has lost however much he's lost, we haven't been really good about keeping track with him. He sleeps so soundly. He's not waking me up. He's not making these absurd noises. I know he's breathing, and because that's another thing. He would do this, like he'd suck in and then he would be like, and then slowly, he'd hold his breath and then he would slowly be like expressing that air. It's so bizarre, but he doesn't do it anymore. He sleeps like a normal person should sleep. So that was a huge impact. And we knew this, like we know sleep apnea is a real thing. We know why it's caused, but when you actually experience the change of going from not being able to breathe to now, okay, you're breathing, it's pretty impactful.
And even people that have, I mean, Stacy uses a CPAP, and even after losing weight, she still has to. Like, she has a genetic issue, but it's, I mean, her sleep doctor is like, definitely, like, it has improved like dramatically. So yeah, that's really helpful. It's one of my first signs when I'm off track. I mean, when I get up, if I cross like a 15-pound or so, like the wrong direction, Stacy's like, get up, like, what, I mean, I start snoring again really loudly. So it's awesome that it helps so many people when they get that. And the way it talked about in sidebar you were talking about was kind of scary, because it's like a cycle of like, you have the sleep apnea that causes this, and then that affects your weight, and boom, now you're in a spiral.
Yeah.
And now you're in a spiral, yeah.
Bad sleep, gaining weight, bad sleep, gaining weight. Like, it's just a vicious, but yeah, even it's saying like it's primarily because of that fatty tissue in the neck. That's what I thought about with Richard too.
Yeah. That's what I thought was really interesting, because I never would have thought that being the area that would cause it. I was thinking it was because of all the weight he had on his chest and his
constricting, like where he breathes. Crazy.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
And so I use a CPAP, and doctor had never talked to me about weight impacting the sleep apnea.
Wow.
Really?
Interesting.
Well, the other thing, kind of unrelated, but in a way, like I have, especially you guys who are coaches or clients, like if you're struggling, another thing that happens that's a benefit of having the ritual is, number one, just getting the right amount of sleep and having a ritual. And the part of the ritual is not like eating during that time, other than, you shouldn't have anything other than a fueling within the last 3 hours of like being up. But that's one of the biggest things that people struggle with. And I might be wrong on my stereotype here, but it seems like guys in particular, like they stay up late, I think a lot of guys, and I'm sure it's parents in general or people in general, like just, it's like, oh, I'm finally get this break at night, and now I'm going to watch TV or do something. just to kind of rest and take a load off. And that's when the eating happens. I mean, it's like 90% of when my people get off track is because of late night eating, including me. Like I say, my people, me. I'm talking about me. But so when I get to bed on time, like that immediately impacts that. It's like just get to bed. Like just set it aside. You don't understand how much better you're going to feel if you sleep enough, and how you're going to eat better because you're not going to be eating the junk late at night. And it's that reverse spiral. Now we're losing weight, we're feeling better, and our energy is getting better, and we're not snacking at night. Now it's just all so tied in. So I hope, especially for coaches who are new to coaching people, like never discount how important the sleep is to everything. It's like, why is my client not eating right? Well, one of the questions is, are they sleeping right? Literally.
Right.
Well, if you have acid reflux, eating late at night will let you know that you shouldn't be doing that too.
Yeah.
But what's
Richard,
interesting about that too? Go ahead, Eric.
I'm sorry. Richard, I had really bad reflux before I started playing, and it completely dissipated. Like day 4, I haven't had an acid reflux attack in 3 years. Do you have a similar experience? Or, I mean, I know different causes, like some people still suffer from it regardless.
Well, I was one of those guys for a very long time. I would eat a heavy meal, within hours of going to bed. And sometimes I would be sitting in bed, reading a book, eating a little bit less than a quart of ice cream just before I turn the light out, and have no problem going to sleep. But until the acid reflux started acting up, and the acid reflux used to keep me awake. And a lot of times when I would do something like that, it would delay my going to bed. I'd have to sit up for a period of time before I could go to bed until that got digested. I haven't since I've gotten a little smarter and reduced the amount of food that I consume after about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, I haven't had much of a reflux problem at all.
Okay, I have something strange that this week that I have a client say that this is only her first week on program, and she is having trouble with sleep eating. Sleeping. Like she gets up and in the morning and she sees an empty box of, hot tamales or, something. And other than purging her house is what I said, we need to work on, getting it out of your environment. But that was the strangest thing. I'd never heard of that before.
I don't know that we could help that. She's got to go get.
Yeah.
But
we
it's
can help
element
on
7.
the surrounding side. And,
the purging.
I mean, like you can't eat tamales if you don't have tamales. But yeah, that certainly sounds like something for like a counselor to deal with, because that's.
Why isn't she going for the bars? She should be going for the bars or a fueling.
Yeah, maybe that's what I should tell her to set out for herself.
Yeah.
Better fueling out for yourself just in case it happens.
Yeah, lay them in a basket on the counter. Like, wake up in the morning like, oh, there's 3 fueling wrappers on the counter.
For sure. I do like. I like that Dr. A starts to really. I stopped drinking. This has only happened in the last few months, but stopped drinking coffee so late because that was affecting my sleep. I didn't even read this chapter yet, but I realized it was screwing me up, and then I'd end up in the kitchen where I shouldn't be, and I was awake and I wasn't sleeping. And on page 403, just talking about all right, these are the things you start cutting out as you go through. The coffee 8 hours ahead, caffeine 5, exercise 4. Alcohol and for some reason I read that. I thought I said heavy metals, but it's heavy meals. And
no heavy metals ever.
Right? I know. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like pointing to it, like, what is that? What's heavy metal? So work and serious conversation, and that got me thinking of drama that might be happening, or friction with couples or relationship things. I know that for me, if there is, if something happens, my mind starts reeling. Forget about it. Nobody's going to sleep. Well, I'm not going to sleep that night. My head will be spinning, thinking the rest of the night. And then the digital sunset, of course, and the lights out. But that's a good guideline to follow. Just generally speaking, like, oh, all right, I know I'm going to bed at 10. No more coffee after 2, right?
No more yelling at me, Richard. It's 2 hours before I'm going to bed. Stop being mean to me.
I sleep like a baby. Ashley, I just go to sleep. I have no issue. Andrew stays up. And I just go to sleep.
Me too.
But, the whole chapter just got me thinking so much about how, like, as a society, we have no idea how to wind down. And it's not just like sleep related, it's like stress related, right? Like it reminded me, not that I want to go on this tangent, but it reminded me of folks who are like, I need to come home and drink a glass of wine to wind down. Like, why does that have to be your wind down? But electronics is so much in our face, or TVs or phones. Like, we don't know any other way to do it. So you're sitting in a room and you're like, do I talk to somebody? Do I read a book? Like, what? It seems so unnatural these days. And it's sad.
Just read a book.
I'm taking your phone away from my room then. I'm mental
Okay, I do both. I read a book on my phone. So
blue light, you need to get rid of it.
Yep.
I must have a different relationship with coffee than most people, because I've been drinking heavy amounts of coffee for a very long time. And I can drink coffee just before I go to bed and still be asleep within 5 minutes.
I can too, but I thought it was interesting that Dr. A was really talking about how, like, it interrupts your restful sleep, though, whether you know it or not. So it's kind of preventing you from getting into that REM sleep deeply. And we don't always know that, because we can still feel rested when we wake up, or okay, or whatever it is. But I'm the same way. It doesn't affect me. Like, it won't prevent me from falling asleep. But it still got me thinking of, like, ooh, am I getting quality sleep, though, having caffeine in my system?
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, 5 of us tried to talk at the same time, because, I mean, my same experience. Like, I could drink coffee at 11, and my grandparents did their whole life. It's not as though it kept them from sleeping, but just what Ashley said, like 100%. If you get a sleep monitor and you actually track it, and then especially if you then do a control where, like, okay, this week I'm not going to have any coffee within the last 8 hours of the day, I think you'd be kind of shocked at the difference in the quality.
I'll take a look and see what my Fitbit tells me.
There you go. I was just gonna say that.
But you got to compare it. You got to do a control few days without the caffeine to see, because you could have healthy sleep with the caffeine, but it could be like potentially way better without it.
I know that before I started program, like, I couldn't have a good night's sleep. It was like impossible for me to sleep. I would wake up all the time, toss and turn, my joints were hurting. I mean, all the physical things, but I don't think that I ever, like, really fully got into a deep sleep. And then, I'm not kidding you guys, like, the first week of me being on program, that changed. And I was looking at my Fitbit, and that's what I was just going to suggest as well, is that when I looked at my Fitbit prior to me being on program, there was no real movement into the different stages of sleep, right? I mean, you look at it and you had these, like, bright pink, which in mine means that I'm not getting restful sleep at all. Like, I'm super in the light, and it was all the time. And so, but now I'm seeing those beautiful blues and those dark blues for big sections. And it's amazing the difference what your nutrition does for your sleep pattern and, how you sleep. So that I know that caffeine thing gets me too. And it never used to until I started cutting caffeine back. Like, I grew up, my grandmother drank coffee 24 hours a day. There was always a pot on the stove or, brewing or whatever, and it was always available. And so we would drink coffee, I would drink coffee all the time. But then cutting it back, realizing I really don't need it. Yes, I love it, but I can have other alternatives, the caffeine free or whatever. But cutting all of that back and going, to only doing the morning coffee thing. Like I have a couple cups in the morning and then I don't have coffee for the rest of the day. But that has made another additional impact into my sleep. I swear to you that I get the most beautiful sleep ever. And I love it because I am always one, even growing up in high school, I'm like, peace out, people, I'm going to bed. And it's 9-10 o'clock at night. My parents never had to put me to sleep when I was younger. I'm like, nope, I'm out. See ya. Because I do not do good as well without having at least 7.5, 8 hours of sleep. I am like worthless if it's anything less than that the next day. I'm not kidding. So it is pretty amazing though when you feel that actual full rest and how even your day goes.
As the oldest guy here, I will say the thing that impacts my sleep more than anything else is cutting off liquid after about 6 o'clock at night.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, he talks about that in here. I did read it last night. I don't know where I read it, but he definitely talks about cutting the fluids out. I think about 3 hours before sleep. I think that's what he said. I could be wrong. But yeah.
I believe so. 3 hours before.
Trying to get in at least my 60 ounces or 60. Yeah, I get my 60 ounces in before 6 o'clock. I sleep better.
There's actually something though. I know this is going to be against what we're learning here, but there's actually a study with the cardiologist. Oh my gosh, that heart word. There's a study going on about how when you wake up at night, actually to go to the restroom or something, it's not necessarily, yes, it's sleep disruptive, but it's actually, there's some benefits to it. And specifically for your heart. I'll have to see if I can find it and share it in a group or something with you guys, but I thought it was really kind of interesting. Chris actually had found it because I was getting grumpy about waking up to go to the bathroom.
Young mothers trying to take care of little kids that don't have a good sleep pattern for years, that's got to be rough. And I kind of went through that in the last year of my wife's life, and getting up every 2 hours with her. That was not much fun.
Yeah, it is hard. There was another really neat little sidebar that I thought was just an interesting thought, but it's on 411. If you can't get to sleep after 20 minutes of lying there, don't lie in bed getting frustrated. Get up and do something else. Get up. I was like, that's pretty cool because you sit there and toss and turn sometimes. Like maybe if your thoughts are heavy going into bed or something did happen that was stressful right before bed.
Yeah, and I just actually it was sitting here on that page. It's funny you should do that, Ashley, because I literally just highlighted. I didn't even read the sidebar last night when I was reading this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, don't go back to bed. What? And then, but he said if you're even if you're tired, good. Maybe you'll get to bed and fall asleep faster tomorrow, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
But
also nice for the spouse.
Yes.
Whatever.
Oh, but it's true, right? Because it's like I can tell you how many times I saw a meme the other day. Actually, it might have been yesterday, where it was about wives, and it was like a wife could sleep through a movie, a wife could sleep through like the kids arguing, but a wife instantly wakes up when she hears her husband's phone or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's so me. Like I could sleep through the loudest movies on family night, but the minute I hear Andrew like shuffling papers or a hint of a light, I wake up. It's the weirdest thing. So I appreciate where he doesn't lay there. Yeah.
Well, speaking of spouses, like the whole bit about resolving family issues and not having, deep conversations, like, well, not deep, but like, I guess, antagonistic conversations, like late in the evening. That's an important one to really talk with your significant other about, like let's get in the habit of putting this stuff on the shelf until tomorrow, or let's set a time to talk about things that we need to in the morning.
Yeah.
And I can read that, but then on the other hand, like I'm the kind of person that if something does come up, like, I mean, that will prevent me from sleeping if I've got something on my mind. Like I'd rather resolve it, but if you're not really good at resolving it peacefully and like keeping it calm, then yeah, it can get you all worked up, really mess
Isn't
with
that
your
like
sleep.
marriage advice 101? Like, don't go to bed mad at each other, right? Like, that's
Right.
like, that totally contradicts. Yeah. I don't, you take that step by step.
Well, it does
I'll
say
try to
on
squash
411. It does say on 411 resolve family issues. It's not like don't have the conversations, like maybe not start new ones, but it does say these issues should be resolved before bedtime. So it's like don't go to bed mad, but
Just go to bed. Is that a song?
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's another contradiction here. I see what you guys are saying, and that does make sense, but it said on another page not to have, so like page 403, when to stop activities, bright line curfews, 2 hours before bed, end work and serious conversations. So maybe, I guess we got to resolve them before the 2 hour mark. And then
Well,
again,
hopefully
if you're
there's not going to be like an
serious
argument every night. So I think that's the anomaly that like comes in, like when it happens, let's resolve it. But
I've got another
resolve
book for
it
that.
early.
Yeah.
Resolve it early, and then if you're not having deep conversations, hopefully no new ones will come up, right?
I'm gonna
Just
talk to Stacey and see how she's feeling. I'm worried about her now.
I'm imagining myself sitting here having a conversation with Chris and being like, nope, 2 hours before bed, stop. I don't want to hear anything else out of your mouth. I want to sleep. No more.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Time's
right?
up.
No.
Well, or maybe he's just talking about work and serious conversations, and that's not related to marriage. Maybe that's
There you go.
maybe
There you go.
that's two different things.
Maybe we can just make the text fit whatever works for us. That's fine.
Yeah.
You would.
No, so Cindy, do you remember when we had the conversation about how we found that when we're tired and we're staying up past our time that we end up being snacky? I know
Yes.
Eric, you had touched base on that whole thing about nighttime eating.
All there with you guys.
Yeah, so when you're this jogged my memory on that conversation we had, but when you're tired and you're trying to stay up longer than what you're wanting to be, then you go for those things. I wonder if that's just because your body's trying to find the energy to stay up, right? So maybe at that point it's just like, okay, hard stop. I need to go to bed.
Well, I think your willpower drops, right? Like as Eric was talking, the one thing I had thought about earlier was like, he was like, a lot of people want to use that time to wind down. And I get that, right? Like, especially for parents that have little kids, they're like, oh, finally some peace and quiet. Except what happens is like this horrible ripple effect, right? Because sure, you get that quiet time, but then you're not getting enough sleep. So the next day you're even more irritable. And
Right.
I think when you're irritable, you have less willpower to make really good decisions, right? So suddenly all those snacks seem even better the next day. So you're not helping yourself in any way by staying up late for those, extra 30 minutes or an hour, because really everybody's going to be in a bad mood the next day if you don't get a good night's sleep.
Yep.
This is why the materials are so important, because all of these things just come together like in so many ways. And like we have to, as clients ourselves, be understanding all of this. And for those that are coaches, like teaching this stuff, because it is all matched up. I mean, because the first thing I thought about when you talked about late night snacking, and again, always talking to myself when I say these things, is like, I used to really struggle with that. I'd want to get into the kids' candy from whatever the most recent holiday was late at night. So I started literally taking chocolate bars and slicing them into little tiny pieces. And I had a jar out of sight because I don't even want to be eating extra fueling. Like I don't want anything, but I'd hide it like up in the candy area, either a jar or a plastic bag full of little pieces of chocolate fudge drizzled bars. And it's like, if I find myself in the cabinet looking for a Tootsie Roll or whatever, bad example, I hate Tootsie Rolls, but, go for that. And like Barbara mentioned the client, like in the evening, like maybe leave some of that stuff out. Like, I mean, that's better. You could have 3 or 4 pieces of a fueling. I mean, it's not exactly 5 in 1, but it's a whole lot better than, a piece of candy or cookies or whatever we tend to get into.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, I mean, he says, as you're tired, you make your decision making's, erodes, right? And that's part of it. We're making bad decisions when we're tired, easier decisions, quick decisions. And then the combo is when you find pleasure in the late night snacking, then that becomes a habit because your brain's always trying to attach pleasure to an action. So it's like all these different things are just tied in together. That's what makes this book unique, is he's talking about all these different things incorporated into overall health.
Well, it also reminds me of last week, and we were talking, and Richard got into some of this when we were talking about the habits, and I talked about this book, Stillness is the Key, that I'm reading, and it kind of, the book gets into it, but it's like the more routines you have, the more you're able to free yourself up for more intentional actions and thoughts like otherwise. So, having a nighttime routine actually is really comforting, and like over time that frees you up for, like, I don't know how to say it, like higher thinking, like, a different way of, like, yeah, I can plan my day for tomorrow. I can kind of think about, what I'm trying to do intentionally in my career or my health or with the kids or with communication with my spouse, instead of being all wondering what I'm going to watch on Netflix tonight. Like, you just free yourself up for like more intentional thinking. So, I mean, just habits, healthy habits. That's the name of the book, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, right? Because we're all about like being workaholics, right? Where we're like, oh, let's just get this one more thing done, or I have this great idea, so let me stay up and do this work on it. Except you're not giving your best thought because you are tired. Whereas if you just went to bed, like jot down that idea, go to bed, get a good night's sleep, you will function and get that work done probably more efficiently because you are more rested.
Like that's a personal attack.
No, no comment.
Even just like watching TV.
That offense lies within you.
Yeah. TV is like one of those things where, like, I know I personally always associated it with like snack time, like, so I hear often from clients of mine where they're struggling in those evening hours, but bringing up this healthy bedtime routine and turning off the TV and not being, locked in front of the TV will help alleviate that unhealthy habit from going in that direction, because you're disturbing that norm for yourself. So it's just something that we've all kind of done. You go to the movies, you get popcorn, you get candy, you get the things. You sit in front of the TV at night, you want a snack, you see commercials about food, you want to have more food, you do those things. There's all these subconscious things kind of happening. So switching up that routine, I think, is just huge. And I agree. It's all just so related.
Well, this last week, I just ran across an article talking about not just for your kids' safety, not allowing them to take phone or computer or laptop into their bedroom, where they're by themselves with that, and interrupting their sleep may be the worst thing may be the least bad thing that could happen in those circumstances too. Unsupervised computer or social interface with kids when they're really young can be really bad.
Well, we set up the habits, right? I mean, we basically start allowing things to take place. And the earlier that we can get those caught, especially on our kiddos, the better off they're going to be at the end of the day. I mean, this really had me revisiting our whole night routine, Chris always says that, he hates waking up and he hates going to sleep. Well, because there's just not enough time in the day. So trying to get him into a good routine, but is one thing, but I still, as a parent, have control of my child's routine. And that's the one that I can, impact the most on right now. And so making sure that I'm joining our routines together, that we do this whole process together, I think is going to be a huge impact for Dylan, for sure. My oldest. Go ahead.
It's kind of interesting, been a long time since I've had kids, and it was a long time before the smartphones and laptops and all that was around. But talking to parents that want to take their kids someplace on vacation where there's no cell phone reception, there's no internet, and the kids just go absolutely berserk. That's bad. I think that's a symptom of, you need to throttle back on that when they're at home.
Well, yeah, there's an addiction. I mean, there's an obvious addiction. And I think even as adults, we're susceptible to that addiction. And I like how Dr. A even brings up, that we need to make sure that we're disconnecting. We have that moment of not being inundated with information technology, the busy. And I think the twilight hour, and even maybe before the twilight hour, that's an amazing opportunity for that to happen. I'm even debating like 2 hours before, extending our twilight hour by an hour, just to have that extra time as a family, just chilling, and we all can come together and, and just stop being so rushed and stop being so always doing, you know what I mean? I mean, you don't just sit and we do at the dinner table, because we are one of the ones that still dinner's at the table. That's the way it is. And so there's some time there, but then after dinner's done, everybody goes and, the disbursement happens. So bringing everybody back together, I think, is going to be a huge impact. And something that I'm really going to start working on getting implemented.
Yeah.
We found that.
Oh, go ahead.
We found that we did 2 hours at our house, but 5:30ish, so like dinner time, we do no more screen time. And with the virtual learning, it's like they just all day are on a screen.
Yeah.
I found the same thing, that like even if I only give them a couple hours, it still feels like it's creeping into their night routine and really has an impact on their behavior. Like, it's wild the difference that our bedtime is by taking it away so much earlier. And then we connect before bed, right? So they're no longer like, well, I want to hang out with you, Mom. You're like, you want to hang out with me? Even sit on your iPad. Like, I'm just sitting out here waiting for you to hang out with me, bro. They don't want to hang out with you when they have that thing in front of their face.
Aren't the kids just worn out after spending all day on the computer?
You would think, but
ready to put it aside?
Oh,
I think it actually does. I think it does the opposite. It ramps them up. I mean, it makes it so much harder. I noticed that if Dylan doesn't shut down at shutdown time, like especially on the weekends, because he's allowed, during the weekend, it's the weekend, you can have extra time. So he's given that extra time, and he's not able to turn off and has the hardest time going to sleep. He's coming into our room. I can't tell you, like maybe 3-4 times a night. I can't sleep. And it's because he didn't get that disconnect time. His brain is still going, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, it doesn't.
It's really got me thinking. Oh, I'm sorry, Misty. I thought you were done.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say it makes it's the same for, I guess it's not the same for us. For us, we get like, oh my God, I can't do anymore. I'm so exhausted. Right. But for our little people, their synapses are still firing. Their brains are still growing. And so it has quite the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
it's really got me thinking about, and I know it will be like a revolt around here, but I mean, for myself too, like Andrew was saying, I mean, he loves to even be reading, but I'm thinking about literally just shutting off the router like 2 hours before bedtime, or at least, start with, maybe work it back like an hour, hour and a half. I don't know.
Wow.
And then,
Hey,
brave.
and then
that'd be rad.
yeah, well, I mean, how else? Like, I mean, then you just know, and we're all in the same boat. So it's not like, oh, my
Exactly.
sibling is getting something I'm not, or why do we have a rule that you don't follow, Dad?
Eric, just say the internet's down, guys. I don't know what the heck's going on. I think I could do that. That would
Down every
Well, I
night.
think it goes
at-
back to it really truly does go back to people's ability to not know how to unwind. And I mean, I even think for us, like how hard it is for even the kids sometimes. Like Carter wants to bring the phone to the table, and I'm like, why are you on your phone at the table? Right. And we're not always the best example. So it like does have to put me in check. But why can't we turn things off an hour beforehand and just have that quality family time? Because otherwise, I mean, you guys will know when your kids are older, half the time they don't want to hang out with you anyway. So it's kind of like forced hangout time. And the electronics don't make it easier because Carter's downstairs playing video games. Naomi's, FaceTiming in her room. And then, of course, we just find ourselves working or doing whatever. But it does kind of bring those families together in a different way, whether it's a game or something else.
Well,
got me thinking about more low-tech stuff too, because there's some healthy stuff they do connected. Like I said, my daughter is on Alexa with this nice relaxing music, and I'm like, well, if I turn off the router, she can't do that. So like maybe there's something to be said for having a regular radio or a CD player. I mean, I don't know. There's ways to get around all that, but it's a job. I got 4 kids, and trying to like, keep track of what apps and where they're spending their time is impossible.
I think what Cindy is saying though is so on point. We just need to create space for them to learn how to disconnect and quiet themselves too. And I found specifically what I'm learning with Landon is like, I need him to be okay with being bored sometimes.
Yeah.
Kids just don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to stop. And I think we're the ones that do that to them too, because we're constantly go, 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 filling our space with everything. We don't just like be, but like I found Landon saying like, I'm bored though. Like if I'm not giving him time on his iPad or something, it's like, it's okay to be bored. Be creative, think of something, do something, where you're reading or you're inventing something to do, or you're being creative, go outside. Like, but it's also just good to be bored.
Do you guys remember? No. Do you remember when you were a kid and you go, hey, let's pretend whatever? Like I spent years just pretending because we were bored, and that was okay. And I was the most creative person as a child. And then as you grow up, whatever, your creativity starts to diminish. You don't pretend anymore. You don't dream. I have noticed that when our kids have their devices taken away, I'll be darned if they don't get along. Like they're not arguing. All of a sudden they're like, hey, you want to play some checkers? Okay. Now they're doing stuff that doesn't relate to the devices because we take them away because they're in trouble or whatever. Now they're like best friends. But there's something to be said for that. Yeah, I forgot. I'm glad we're talking about this because I forgot about that. Kids don't know how to be like, what do you want? Go figure out something to do. Go play, go play with a stick. Go throw some rocks, go do something. We turned out okay by doing that stuff.
Go make a mud pie.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, guys. Well, it is 8:00 here, a little bit past. Fantastic discussions today. Before I shut down, is there anything that anybody else wanted to add? Anybody that didn't get a chance to share or wanted to say anything before we shut this down?
One thing that an approach that I've been taking, because sleep has been, Andrew and I have been talking a lot about sleep. And I'm kind of approaching sleep time, the amount of time I'm asleep, kind of like the exercise program. You kind of ease into it because I'm not ready to commit to 7.5 hours of uninterrupted sleep or 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. But if I could consistently get 6 hours and working towards 7 hours and eventually 7.5 or 8, seems to be working more for me and is easier to do than trying to say, okay, we're going to make a 100% change.
That's you ease into those habits, Richard. Absolutely. And by the way, I know we've talked about napping. Napping isn't bad. So you can take the 20-hour power. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. If you guys are open to it, turn on your cameras real quick. Let's get a nice shot of everybody that's in here still. Of course, Eric.
Yeah, Cindy, turn on your camera.
I'm on.
All righty.
Here, you're sitting there getting ready.
Wait, I'll do a better
You're
picture
so pretty.
here.
You're so pretty.
All right, guys. Everybody smiling? All right, got it. Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for jumping on. Catch you in 2 more weeks, and we'll jump into some other awesome chapter. All right, you guys.
Bye.
Have a good day today. Bye-bye.
Bye.